Might be a short video, might not be a short video. So last weekend I was at the farm and I've had this Sony, what is it, a CFS-B15 little boombox hanging. I use it hanging in the shed. So when I'm at the farm, I usually have the news on while I'm working around the property. And I've had it for quite a number of years. It actually belonged to my maternal grandmother, and I ended up with it after we cleaned out her assisted living facility when she passed away in 2005, I believe. So I've used it off and on, mostly in the summer ever since. Well, last time I used it back in early August, it was working fine. At the farm last weekend, I plugged it in the shed, as I don't normally leave stuff plugged in. Tried to turn it on, and it was dead. I mean, completely dead. AM, FM, don't hear a hiss, don't hear a thing. There's a little red light up here that was coming on, so I knew there was power there. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to plug it in again and try to see if that's still the case. Okay, and since I have one, I got this kilowatt power meter hooked up, and let me see, we have voltage here, and I'm going to let's just plug the radio in, and we have our red light up here. Let's display current. I wouldn't expect much current. All right. Okay, so let's see up here. It's actually on FM right now, so that's the off position. It's FM, that's AM. The volume is cranked wide open, and I hear nothing. I hear no hiss, I hear no crackle, no static, no noise, no nothing. So it's still dead. All right. So first thing, let me see if I can find a cassette tape and stick that in there, and we'll see if that works, and maybe it's just the radio stuff. Alright, I have a homemade mixtape that I've had around for a while. I'm not even sure what's on it. I got the volume turned down just in case there's in case it does work, then I don't want any copyright noise. Okay, the motor did run briefly, and maybe it was that end of tape. This is one of those ones that's upside down and backwards looking. So let's try that. You can hear the motor running. It's pulling very little current. I'm not sure when the tunes will start here, if ever. I'm not even sure what's on this tape. This side might be blank. Just in case that's true, let me get another one. Hang on. Okay, I got a pre-recorded commercial tape in here this time, and I've let it run here for long enough that if it was going to have any audio, I'd hear something by now. And it's still dead. So motor's running in it, so there's power in the unit. The tape deck mechanism appears to work. Red light, obviously. Hang on. Oh, maybe I have the wrong switch position. Put it there. I had it in the radio one, so. Alright, still no joy there. In fact, there's no crackle or hiss, and I know the slider has been a little crusty. Leads me to think that the power amplifier is dead, apparently. Okay, looks like I'll have to crack it open and try to figure it out. It's very strange that something worked and then you unplugged it and 2 months later it's dead. It's not like anybody used it or did anything with it. It's just been hanging on a hook on the wall unplugged for 2 months. Very strange. Alright, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, maybe the 7th with this antenna. I don't see anything else obvious. I'm not going to film taking this apart, but what, maybe there's another screw hole there, I'm not sure. At any rate, I'll take this apart and return when maybe there's something worth looking at. Well, there was one more screw that I missed, so I easily found that. This thing came apart pretty well. I was surprised. I suspected some snap tabs or something. So the front here, when you got the screws out, it just pops off, and this wire here for the speakers plugs into there, so just remove it and that's completely out of your way. So while I'm looking at this, so it looks like this is the AC line input power supply, and this board over here apparently is the AM/FM radio tuner. And then I'm surmising that the board under and behind the cassette mechanism is the power amplifier, because that's where the volume control and the functional switch is. So in order to get at that, it looks like the cassette mechanism needs to come out. Wonder how many screws there are for that. Otherwise, it doesn't look like there's any good way to inspect it for anything. Although I suppose, yeah, I mean, if the motor for the cassette, which is back there, is working, I doubt that runs off a straight AC. I mean, this radio, you could put in a bunch of D-cell batteries. Looks like, I don't know, 6, 8 of them or something instead. And so the cassette motor would probably run off those directly. I can't read the sticker on the motor from back here, but certainly that wire, this wire here, one goes to the motor, the other one, yeah, I don't know. I'm the sort of guy that has to take everything apart. Sometimes maybe I didn't need to, so that's what I'll do, because I just like taking stuff apart and hopefully getting it back together again. When you have kids, I don't have kids, but you should give them some old junk to take apart safely, just for fun. And I used to take stuff apart when I was a kid, and oftentimes it ended up thrown out because there's no way to get it back together again, and my parents weren't interested in trying to reassemble it if it wasn't actually broken from me trying to take it apart. However, very curious kid, you know, when I was small, so don't discourage kids from doing that if at all possible. It led to me having a career as an electrical engineer in electronics. So, alright, I'm going to start throwing screws out. Alright, a little bit deeper into it. 2 screws and some gentle prying, and then unplugging this wire from over there. I was able to swing out the tape mechanism. It's still attached to the amp board, and you know, this is the head that reads the tape, and that wire is plugged in down here, so I just need to get this tape off of here, and then we'll pull him off. And then the tape mechanism should be completely out of the picture to investigate why the amplifier board or radio isn't working. So yeah, I'll just cut that strapping tape off and gently unplug the tape head cable. Yeah, so 3 screws in the amplifier assembly. There was one hidden in that hole, and then the other 2 were more obvious. And a little bit of gentle nudging, and it slid down, and it's loose. It's just held in by the harnessing. So, you know, I didn't expect to see anything obvious, and I don't see anything obvious. I wonder what that white thing is down there. What is that? That's right here. I bet that has something to do with the cassette player. I bet there's some function with the cassette player. Because that looks like a switch to me. That looks like a switch. Yeah, these other things, this is, you know, obviously this power switch, slide volume pot, headphone. And that makes me thinking now about this headphone, that is there any chance that something's happened with the headphone jack? And because normally the way these things are set up is when you plug a headphone in here, it cuts off the speakers. Nothing's been plugged in here as long as I've owned it, which is quite a long time, but it's exposed up on the top, the dust and dirt getting down in there, and I wonder if it's possible that the root cause problem is this is the switch in here is somehow shorted across or closed, and then it's transferred over to headphone mode, and no sound is in the speakers as a result. I'm gonna go find a headphone and investigate that a little bit. Well, my hunch was kind of partially right. It's got something to do with possibly the headphone jack. Right now I have some headphones plugged in, and you can probably make out some classical on an FM station. But if I pull this out, and I have the speaker plugged back in here, if I pull this back out, you would expect to get it on the main speakers, and I get nothing. So yeah, there's some kind of problem in the vicinity of this headphone jack. And why is the... So here's the speaker wires going to the speakers, and then there's this little board. There's a plug here, and it looks like, yeah, those wires go right up over here to the vicinity of the headphone jack. So obviously the radio works. I tried it on AM FM, it's working fine. Volume control's working. Everything's working, and you get sound at the headphone jack, but not to the speakers. So looks like the problem, and I mean, it could still be the headphone jack or something in the vicinity of that. I'm gonna fiddle around with this a little more, because it's very difficult to handle this board, these little boards with one hand holding the camera. You know, maybe I'll find something interesting. Hopefully I do, and we can resolve it. It's been a couple days later, and I'm resuming work on this this Sony boombox that doesn't seem to work, seems to be dead. One thing I discovered in the meantime was that the headphone jack works. So let me set my thing down here. Where's the headphone jack I had? I had a headphone. There's a headphone right here. Where is the alright, bear with me. So right now it's tuned to a news station, and if I plug in this headphone, you can hear on the headphone that we have audio. Alright. And when I pull it out, we do not. Okay, so I have the service manual here, and this shows the wiring of the headphone jack. So the first thought is that the switch contacts that are open and closed, whether or not there's a plug-in for the headphone, are crusty, and that's why the speakers aren't working. So off camera earlier, I'd reflowed the solder joints on the jack here, and that didn't make any difference. And then I removed it and actually dismantled it very carefully and spritzed the internal switch contacts with contact cleaner, put it back together, reinstalled it, and I didn't see any difference at all. Absolutely no difference. So I don't think there's a problem with this headphone jack. So if you look at this, let me grab a pointing device. Hang on here. So, I mean, you can tell that the switch contacts like are here and here. And if you follow it down, it's these two pins here, those two pins there for the two channels. So depending on whether or not the plug is plugged in, you should get an open or a short between these two plugs. So I'll show you what happens when we do that, because it does look fine, but we'll prove it that there's no problem here. So I'm going to need to set up for that, and be one moment. Alright, I have my headphone jack removed, and I've got my meter set up for sort of continuity test. Alright, so we're going to ohm out the jack that has been taken apart. It's been cleaned. It's had contact cleaner on it. So if you recall, we looked at so these two pins, and those two pins should be open or closed depending upon whether there's something plugged in here. So if we hear our continuity tester, make sure that works. If we go across this, and we have continuity, and if we go across this one, we have continuity. So there's no open there. Now, if I plug in my headphone, I would expect those same 2 points to now be open circuit, because when the plug pushes in, it opens them up. Verify that. And open. And open. Let's just remove it. Always do an ABA test. Okay, so it doesn't seem like there's a problem with the switch contacts in the plug. So then the question is, if it's nothing to do with the headphone jack, what is it? Headphone works if I plug it in. I get no sound on the speakers when it's not plugged in. There's not a whole lot else to this thing, and we'll start looking at what else could it be. Alright, next step is going to be try to trace signal from where it goes to the jack and then the speakers to these power amps. So I've kind of have a markup of the schematic here with the highlighter, and so we want to look at where this purple and or pink and yellow go. This seems to be a bridged amplifier with a plus and a minus, so one side of the speaker is not connected to the ground. I mean, if you look at the schematic in detail, what they do with the headphone jack is one side of the headphone speakers is tied to ground, and then there's an RC connection, because you usually want to reduce the volume there, so they don't want to drive as much power into the headphones as they do the normal speakers. So what I'm going to do is we're going to trace back to these two tracks from the power amplifier and see if we're getting signal there on both of them. So what I have here is I have a scope probe. Scope probe is grounded at the power ground, which if I followed it back, that's the spot. So I'm looking for those pins, what is it, 15 and 18. And if we look over here on the board layout, it's going to be, the ones there and there. So here we have our scope. Let's see here. Alright, so the power pins are the two on the top. So if we look at that one right there, oops, I don't think I have power applied to this. Bear with me. Alright, hook the power back up. It's never a good idea to leave this stuff unpowered when you're not immediately looking at it. Alright, so it was the third pin down from the top I was interested in here. So that's one side of the amplifier output, so we got signal there with an offset. Alright, and then the other side of that same amplifier, which should be the other side of the speaker, is that one there. And we got signal there with an offset. So there should be signal on both sides of the speakers. And if we look over on the other power amp for the other channel, let's see what we got there. We got signal, and again, this one, we got signal. So, it seems like, these amplifiers should be working. So let's go look at each side of the speakers. I mean, off camera I had ohmed out the wiring to the speakers. It seemed okay. Alright, so let's just start with this speaker over here. That one, we got a signal there. And other side of the speaker, got a signal there. Let's do the same thing on the other speaker. And we have signal there. And we have a signal there. So, could we have bad speakers? It would seem odd to me that we'd have two bad speakers. Why would they fail at the same time? It's not like this thing is, not a powerhouse, and it's not been used to play, loud music with a lot of bass on it. So why would those go bad? I don't know. Let's check the continuity of the speakers, and because that's easy enough to do, and we'll see what happens from there. Alright, easy thing to check is, are the speakers open circuit or not? And so we'll do that. Alright, so I got my a meter on ohms, and we're just going to go across these speaker leads, which are, at least according to the marking on the speaker, should be around 12 ohms. Alright, we're going to check the continuity of these speakers, which is supposed to be 12 ohms per the marking on the speakers. So we're going to watch the ohm meter up here. So let's just check our meter leads. You get 0 ohms when they're shorted. And what do we get? 198K. That's not what I would expect. Let me go do the other one. I won't move the tripod, but we should see 12-ish ohms. And we got 202K. Well, that doesn't seem right. All right, so are these speakers open? Well, kind of seems that way, doesn't it? What I'm going to do next is we'll bridge one of the speakers with a test speaker and see if that works. And if it does, we can remove the speakers and investigate why would they be open. That's just very odd to me. All right, so we're going to try bridging the speaker. So I got this test speaker here, which is only 4 ohms, so you'll be careful with this. So one lead of the speaker, I'm just gonna connect it on here. Alright. And then I have a cap on this one just for safety purposes. So let's see what we get here.
What happened to Hamas now?
Okay, so that works. So it seems like it could be open speaker. Let's try the other speaker. Let's move that one to there. Do the same thing. We'll just we're bridging this existing speaker with a test speaker.
Do you understand why Israel has?
Okay. Sure looks like we got bad speakers and they're both open circuit for some unknown reason. We measured about 200K on each one of them. We traced through power amp. We took apart the headphone jack and checked that for continuity. Resoldered everything. Doesn't seem to be the problem. Traced signal from the power board down to the speakers. Had signal here. Now when we bridge an existing speaker, we get audio here. So it really seems like both, which is really surprising. Both of these speakers have like suddenly gone open circuit for unknown reasons, and it's very mysterious. I don't have any 12 ohm speakers like this kicking around, and if that's going to be the repair, I'm going to need to find some and order them to get this thing working again. But I'd like to know why could these speakers be open? I don't get it. It's not like mice have been crawling in here chewing wires off, etc. It's like it worked and then shut it off. 2 months later, doesn't work. Don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm going to try dig into taking one of these off and see if there's anything to see on the other side. Okay, so I removed the screws of this speaker so we can flip it up out of here. And I mean, there's nothing obvious to see with it. So the unit's hooked up, and let's hook up this bridged speaker again, just to prove that there should be signal here.
And underneath them is no longer.
Okay, so there's signal there. And I'm gonna push down on the cone. Sometimes if you do things like this, it reconnects whatever's open, and it might work for a brief period of time, just for test purposes. And I'm pushing on this, and you got nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I guess the next thing I'm gonna do is Alright, I had an interruption there. The flash card of my camera got full and locked me out. Alright, I was about to say that we're going to unsolder wires off the speaker and maybe investigate further on this speaker. So, I mean, I got the soldering iron here warming up, and we'll unsolder these two wires and investigate a little more. Okay, I've unsoldered the two wires here from the speaker. And if I check that, we got 0 ohms like you'd expect. And if I go across the speaker wires, we have an open. Okay, so earlier when I before I disconnected it, I ohmed across the two speaker wires as they were connected. So let's do that here. So we get that 200K. So that's the output impedance of the power amplifier when it's not powered up, apparently. So this speaker is open, and apparently the other one is as well. This is very mysterious. That what could have happened? I mean, this thing worked, turned it off, unplugged it, 2 months later, plug it in, turn it on, it's dead. And in that meantime, these two speakers have gone open circuit apparently. That's quite, I don't know, I find it odd. And let's check maybe this Litz wire here. Just looking at that. At least that's not open circuit on the Litz wire solder connection. So whatever it is has to be from the Litz wire, which comes up through here and it gets soldered to the coil in the speaker, and then there's some wire runs down under here. So whatever it is that's past that, there's a coil wound around down inside there. It's very, very odd. These speakers, of course, have a 3-point mount, and they're 12 ohms, so they're kind of, I don't know, I'd call them odd. I don't know, maybe we'll be able to locate some replacements for these. We'll see. Or not. So this is kind of disappointing. I was quite hoping that it was just some dirty contacts in the headphone jack, but does not appear to be the case. Seems to be we got bad speakers, which, why would that happen? I don't know. This might be quite a delay before there's an update on this video while I try to get some replacement speakers for this or whatever. All for now. So off camera, I did a little poking around on one of the speakers here. So earlier, what I did is, did an ohm meter from this Litz wire right where it's meeting the paper cone up to the terminals, did that on both sides, and there was continuity there. So the next step was try to figure out where the break was here. So using a knife, I cut off this dust shield, and that wasn't too nice for the paper, kind of tore it up. However, investigating here and here, you could see where, at least on one condition, where the microscopic wire was broken, and it's pretty much impossible to even see that wire, as far, and much less tease it out enough to, try to solder onto it and fix the break. I mean, it looks like and I've worked on magnet wire before on, in a prior life at work, that, I mean, this stuff looks like it's probably like 40 gauge or something. It's really, really fine, and just about impossible to try to fix something when there's no slack or a piece of it hanging out far enough to get a hold of. And I mean, I could barely see it even with a magnifying lamp. So I don't know. I don't know why both speakers would have broken simultaneously, but yeah, these seem to be toast. Finding another set of speakers of this type might be difficult because they're 12 ohms, which is an odd resistance, and not only that, they have this 3-point mount. They're approximately 3-inch diameter, not counting the mounting tabs. So I don't know if I can find anything. My guess is if I do find something, it's going to be kind of a hack job to install them into the cabinet or in the housing there just to get this to work. So definitely, if there's a follow-up video on this one, it might be a while before that occurs. All right. So I think that's going to be a wrap-up so far on this little Sony boombox troubleshooting expedition. I was hoping it was just nothing more than, like a corroded something or a simple broken wire, something easy to deal with. And these speakers, I mean, if you had a ready source of replacement parts, it would be an easy repair to do, but just a little bit of digging around on the internet, it doesn't seem like you can just, like, boom, there they are. So there may or may not be a follow-up on this one, depending on what I can find for parts. Well, it's been a while since I've worked on this boombox with the two bad speakers. Took some time to try to find something that would fit. Unfortunately, Sony has this odd resistance, 12 ohms, but even worse is the housing with the 3 flanges on it. I couldn't find anything like that, and Sony no longer has these. So the best I could come up with are a couple of these 8 ohm speakers. They're not 12. I think I'm going to put a resistor in series just because they're the same diameter on the cone, and the metal part, let's slide this over here. So the metal diameter, the round part is the same. So they will fit here right on the molded plastic ring. So now my challenge is to figure out a way to mount those, because I don't have these flanges on here. So I've thought about trying to cut part of this off to make some hold downs for over here to get it on the 3 points. I may end up doing that. I'm not sure how that will work. I guess I got nothing to lose because these are all open circuit anyway, and I did dig into this a little bit, and the wire in there is so incredibly fine and brittle that I don't have any expectations of repairing these, which is why I got 2 new speakers. I mean, and these were only about $5 each or something. Actually, it was less than that. So I don't have a lot of monetary value here. I mean, this isn't a high value item anyway. I'm just trying to get it to work again because it's handy to have out at the farm when I'm there. Okay, so I haven't inserted the resistor. I'm just going to show that, I mean, this does work. So we'll just turn this on briefly here.
Pub, an event location to host your private parties, from company gatherings to holiday parties.
Right. So we had, you know, just some FM public radio station on a Sunday afternoon. So yeah, this does work. I have 2 of these speakers. It's just a matter of figuring out how I can get them in here. I reassembled everything else I'd torn apart because I, determined that there was no need to dig into that. And I've actually verified with a tape stuck in here that everything works again after having it apart and pulling the cables, like this one, and there's another one under here for the tape deck. Make sure that everything works. I've been there before. You put everything back together and then something doesn't work, and then you have to take it all apart again. So I wanted to try to mitigate that by making sure everything works as in between step. I think one of the most, after figuring out how to mount the speaker, one of my other problems is going to be when I put the back, or the front actually, back on, you notice that this is the radio dial pointer here, and it's got gear teeth on it that mesh up with the gear teeth on the tuner ring here. So I'm going to figure out how to get that in the right spot so that when I put it back together, that the dial scale for the radio at least fairly closely lines up with what it should be. So I'm going to think about what am I going to do with these speakers and come back with some kind of a plan, all for the moment. Alright, this is what I end up doing. I took the other speaker, they're both junk, open circuit, and I used a Dremel with a cutoff wheel to slice off the flange here of the speaker, such that it kind of mostly fits down over the top of the new speaker. It's not perfect. I think I could, oops, this magnet sticks here. It could probably grind off a little bit more of the inside diameter. The grinding disc I have isn't very aggressive, and it's very time consuming. I spent some time on that already. I think it's good enough, and how this is going to work is we're going to set the speaker in here, and then this is going to fit over the top to clamp it down. And we'll put, I've already kind of done a test fit of this, and yes, the flange, or the holding ring, if you will, that I've just created is a little bit raised up from the surface. I might put some spacer washers underneath that. The other thing I will do is I'm going to get some silicone or some adhesive and put a couple dabs between this flange ring and the new speaker, so that there's no possibility of it like rattling or buzzing. I think this is going to work out. So I'm going to finish this side up, and then we'll cut this other side up as well. Of course, the speaker is totally destroyed now. The original one, it's papers here. The rest of it's in the shed where I was out in the garage doing that because I didn't want the metal filings and grinding dust to get all over my electronics bench. That's not good a thing at all. So I think this is what's going to happen, and we'll see how well that goes. Hopefully I got some adhesive around here that isn't dried up. I don't use it very often, and oftentimes I go to use it and it's cured in the tube or dried up or something. Yeah, all right, we're gonna continue on this one. All right, continuing on this boombox repair. I have the second speaker installed, same as the first one. I cut out the center of the old speaker until I had a ring and set that in there. I clamped it down. Some silicone between the two metal pieces so it doesn't rattle, and then a little on the screw heads. I found out that initially I over tightened the screws on this one, and when I had the radio going I noticed this speaker was garbly sounding, and I thought, oh goodness, I had a bad speaker I'd bought. No, it just was apparently warping the frame of the speaker by having the ring pressing down too tightly. So I had to back off the three screws a little bit until the distortion went away, and it seems okay now. And so all I got to do next is find a known station here, so that this gear in here meshes with this pointer, so that the pointer on the front is about right. It's not precise. So yeah, just to I'll get a known station tuned in and get the pointer aligned with the teeth, and then I think I can put it back together. Just to slightly demonstrate this, we'll turn it on. I got some classical here, and both speakers are working. I earlier had it on some rock music, and it sounded good for what it is. I mean, we're not talking hi-fi here. Both speakers are working. It sounded okay. So yeah, I have a 3.9 ohm resistor in series with each speaker. These are 8 ohm speakers. The original were 12. We'll see. It seems to work well enough. And the next clip, well, I'm sure I'll just have the whole thing back together. Alright, I think this little project's a wrap. I got all the screws back in, and I got the tuning scale lined. Looks like there was some spots on there where you need to set the wheel, and then the thing would fit, without fiddling with it too much, which makes sense from a manufacturing standpoint. They wouldn't want to have someone trial and error that. It should just flop together, frankly. So I'll just turn the radio on briefly. We got some news on.
But fundamentally sweet
and we got both speakers working.
Yeah, things changed.
I did make sure the cassette seems to work just fine. The stop works on it. I was a little worried there's some switch there for that. Seems to have all gone together. Yeah, so I think this project is over with. A little more work than one would hope, especially having to modify those old speaker frames to act as hold-on rings for the new speakers, but I guess it's worked out as well as can be expected. I mean, this radio, I'm sure, dates from the later 90s, and it's got a little bit of a new lease on life. Alright, all for now.